Oakley dokley. So I'm now going to rank the American Godzilla films, while also throwing in Kong Skull Island. I was originally going to rank these when Godzilla vs. Kong came out, but it keeps getting pushed back, and back, and back again, and I still want to talk about these movies in at least a somewhat timely fashion, so just remember, this is just my opinion. I'd love to hear your own thoughts down below with your own ranking of the MonsterVerse films and where the 1998 Godzilla film lands on your list. So with that said, let's go from worst to first and rank these big G films up. And as always, there will be some spoilers ahead, so you've been warned. Also stick around till the end because I have another hint to what the next animation on the main channel is going to be. I also dropped a hint in my Avengers ranking if you want to check that one out too. So let's get to the ranking now. Okay, so starting at the bottom of the barrel, we have 1998 Godzilla. Now, if I remember correctly, and I may not since I was only 7 years old when this film came out, but I believe this was the first Godzilla film I saw, and you know what, it helped me discover Godzilla and seek out the other movies to rent or watch on TV, so I can't fault it for that. I had toys of this Godzilla, and I think I rented it on VHS probably multiple times after it was done in theaters, but unfortunately rewatching it since becoming an adult, I realized it just doesn't really hold up. It's not cheesy fun like some of the Showa films. It doesn't really balance the dark subject matter with levity like the Heisei films before it, so what we're stuck with is an overly comedic and messy film. The design for Godzilla, of course, is a radical departure from its other appearances, although I think it actually looks pretty cool for a kaiju design on its own. It's just not really Godzilla. And actually the anime series that followed this film would expand and improve on the Godzilla's design and also his capabilities. But unfortunately the human characters and the human drama here feel very one note, which is to be expected sort of with a Godzilla film, but I think with a budget this high and when the actors are A-listers, you kind of just expect a little more from them. And I'm actually a fan of the director Roland Emmerich's other films like Independence Day and Day After Tomorrow, which I think had characters that worked a little better within their films. They just stick out a little more here. One thing worth noting is a lot of Simpson voice actors appear in this film, and being a huge fan of The Simpsons, I always liked that they had little cameos and bit parts in this movie. So altogether, this film is a little messy. It isn't much of a Godzilla movie, but if you're looking for a big budget, B-movie, American kaiju film, this may just scratch that itch for you. And speaking of messy, coming in third place is Godzilla King of the Monsters, the sequel to 2014's Godzilla. Now this film I enjoy a lot more than the 1998 film, so this is a big leap here, but it still has its own problems, mostly revolving around the human plot, which somehow feels both undercooked and overly bloated. The plot of a person unleashing all the kaijus with a device isn't horrible, but that character's motivations are undeveloped, and then her redemption arc later on also just feels so undeserved. Although the monster fights here are actually pretty good, and there's a lot more of them than any other American MonsterVerse film, but they still suffer from cutting away from the action and having them shot way too dark. But part of that makes sense here because Ghidorah creates large clouds and storms wherever he goes, but it still makes it pretty tough to see what's going on in certain parts. Although when the battles work, they really work. I really love seeing Burning Godzilla after his appearance in Heisei. I didn't expect that from this movie, and any scene with Mothra is really just so beautiful. But I think the best part of this film is the soundtrack. It's hauntingly beautiful. The composer creates new themes and reinterprets the older themes in an amazing way. I also really like the cover of Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla during the end credits, which apparently caused some legal trouble for the band back in the 70s, but I guess that's water under the bridge now because they're allowing them to use it here, and it really slaps. So yeah, this may not be the most consistent American Godzilla film, but if you just want to watch it for the action and have a good time, if you have a good TV and a good sound system for it, you really can't go wrong, but just maybe turn the brightness up a little bit more than maybe you usually do. Landing in second place for me is gonna be Kong Skull Island. It's probably the most simple story of the batch, and it is greatly improved upon by setting most of the film during the daytime and using wide-angle shots, allowing the action to be easily seen. I also really like Kong's design here. I think he comes off pretty sympathetic. Some of the other kaiju aren't as fully realized, but they still make for fun battle sequences. I also feel like the human characters are greatly improved here, mainly because the action is smaller in scale, so it can focus more on them and their mission without feeling like they're out of place. I also really like John C. Reilly's character. Some of his lines are a little cheesy, but I believe he's basically gone mad being alone on this island so long, so I can kind of brush off some of those possible flaws. And of course, Samuel L. Jackson's inclusion here is also a bonus. He basically brings every movie he's in up a grade. Now, this film being a prequel, some of the tech used feels a little rudimentary and low scale, although that sometimes ups the stakes because the humans have to use their wits more so than the latest gadget. Although all this makes the film feel a little more incidental and a little less grand than the other films in the series, which works pretty well if this was just a standalone movie, but if you're watching it between Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters, it just feels a little less important in the grand scheme of things. But of course, Godzilla vs. Kong could flesh this one out a little bit more and make it feel a little more part of the series, so I guess I'll have to wait and see. And all that leads to my number one choice, Godzilla 2014. The first 45 minutes of this film are possibly the most tense and best acted of the whole Godzilla franchise. Bryan Cranston does an amazing job coming across as a grief-stricken man, trying to figure out why his wife had to die, but unfortunately once he's out of the picture, the movie just kind of flounders around, trying to re-find its footing, and shifts the narrative onto a less interesting son of his. There's still some great scenes and set pieces with him in the military, but it all feels just a little too contrived. It's like everywhere this man goes, there just happens to be a kaiju attack. This is part of the problem with having this film's scope be greater than just one city or one country. It becomes just too convenient that everything lines up the way it does, but if you can get over that, the third act where Godzilla finally gets to shine and take on the Mutos is stellar and is amazing, and after waiting so long for the build-up to pay off, it really feels like it comes together there. Although these battles still feel a little too short, but I think it's better to give us a little bit of something amazing rather than a lot of something that's just, okay. So all in all, this isn't a perfect film, but I think its good parts elevate it just a little bit above its two sequels. So what do you guys think of my rankings? Do you agree or do you have your own opinions about the franchise? Feel free to leave your thoughts down below. And now let's get to that delicious hint I promised at the beginning of the video. So I think with the hint that I gave in the Avengers video, this one should make it quite a bit easier to people who have seen the series. So, the next video on the main channel has characters that have their own theme song. And this isn't just like the Jaws theme song where there's no lyrics and it's just the music under it. This one has lyrics and everything. Okay, so I think that's two pretty good hints between this and the last video. Let me know if you can figure it out. But before I sign off, I do want to thank my patrons. Specifically, I will thank Jack Bailey and IDK Yeet for supporting the Patreon recently, as well as all my other supporters. Thank you for checking out this channel, and subscribe for more videos in the future. And until next time, keep on keeping on.